So, social media is turning everyone into narcissists. I'm not exempt at all from this phenomenon. I really do think that I am a little bit narcissistic, or at least I have become more narcissistic over the course of the past decade, and according to science, so have you, and pretty much everyone else you know. But does that make us inherently bad people, and is it entirely our fault? Or could it be a byproduct of adapting to survive in increasingly narcissistic and isolating social systems? The current literature indicates that Americans have been becoming 1% more narcissistic every year, and it has been proven that there is a direct correlation between narcissism and social media usage. Just think about the difference between how we used to record ourselves in the 90s and early 2000s versus how we record ourselves now.
Yelling gravy Swayze. Damn, baby, you so vicious, you so clean,
I'm sure you're not at all shocked by this, but maybe you should be. Because if there is truth to this correlation between narcissism and social media, it has dire consequences on relationships and therefore the future of humanity itself. The self-obsession, entitlement, delusion, and validation thirst that social media fuels is fast-tracking the decimation of dating and relationships today. As the kids might say, we are cooked.
Shut up, man. Like, worry about your bald head.
Literally a glorified janitor.
The king was all for.
What do you bring to the table?
So I grew up homeschooled until high school. I moved around a lot. I was a bit of a nerdy kid who spent a lot of time playing the piano and RuneScape. I was never one of the most popular kids. I always felt like I was more of a side character than a main character. I spent a lot of time replaying and beating myself up over every interaction I had with other people. Socially speaking, I think my saving grace was that I was relatively athletic and I wasn't bad looking. All I can really remember, though, is that I just wanted other people to like me. Even the reason I chose to become a goaltender in hockey was because of the high risk and high recognition. After you win, everybody high-fives the goalie, and I just wanted that feeling. Fast forward to early adulthood, I found myself basing the majority of my self-worth on my ability to perform and on the external validation that I was receiving, especially from sports and women. I was that guy who always needed to be in a relationship or talking to some girl because it helped me to feel better about myself. It helped me feel like I was that guy, like I was wanted and good enough, which is the wrong energy to be dating from. I will tell you that for free, because it will not align you with anything healthy, and the truth is it will never be enough. By my mid-20s, I found myself caught up in toxic relationships, addictive behaviors, and self-harm. And looking back, I think it stemmed from that deep-seated need for validation and acceptance, that void within, which is something I believe we all struggle to cope with to varying degrees. Thankfully, I recognized something was wrong and needed to change. Enter social media. I started creating and sharing content in an attempt to do something more meaningful with my life, to give more than I was taking. I felt pretty alone at that point, and social media really drew me in as a way to stay accountable, share parts of my story, and possibly even redeem some of my mistakes by helping others, which is all well and good, but what I also discovered was that social media is a double-edged sword. On one hand, it did allow me a place to share those parts of myself, like my poetry, for example. But on the other hand, I found it gave me, like it gives everyone else, an unrealistic sense of control, a dictatorship over the narrative that we portray about ourselves. We can curate every picture and every word. We can filter, Photoshop, nip, tuck, manipulate every detail to look a certain way and sound a certain way, and we are rewarded for it with attention and validation. We can build these echo chambers around our egos and biases. It's addicting. We feel like we are in control. We can build this online pedestal of status and power, and even begin to replace friends with followers, and even worse, love with likes. Social media enables us to live behind our masks, to turn our personal lives into brands and products to be sold to and consumed by strangers. We role play as semi-fictional versions of ourselves, feeding into that main character syndrome by choosing the perfect angles, filters, and words to siphon as much validation as humanly possible from every post, playing the main character in our own little self-important movies. It enables us to feed off of the attention of thousands and thousands of people 24 hours a day without ever actually investing in or caring about a single one of them. If that does not paint a picture of a narcissistic social dynamic, I don't know what does. Now, I don't talk publicly about my current personal affairs much. I protect my privacy, but I'm in a long-term relationship with a wonderful woman, and we decided as a team to go dark and stay dark on social media. Our relationship is not content to be consumed, and I'm now convinced that it's one of the healthiest decisions a couple can make. It removes a lot of the performative aspects that you see in so many relationships today. Why does anyone feel a need to publicly post about every special moment in their relationship? Who is that for? What is the purpose of posting it for everyone to see? To brag? To convince yourself and everyone else that your relationship is healthy? To give yourself a false sense of security? I don't know, but I do think it makes you less present and less intentional. Every time you do something together, every time you get flowers or go for dinner or go on a vacation, there's a part of your attention that is constantly thinking about how you need to get a picture or a video and create content out of it, and checking to see how many likes you get on it or who watched your story. You're literally removing attention and energy from the person who is there in front of you so you can get attention from all the people who are not there. I think a lot of relationships today are held together by external validation, and I think a lot of relationships today are also harmed by all of the comparison and scrutiny and the access that social media brings into relationship dynamics. I know I don't have this fully figured out, to be honest. I don't think anyone has all the answers. Social media is a very new animal to our environment, because at the same time, it can also be a major red flag if you're with someone who's hiding you from their social media and keeping from being publicly official. I just cannot imagine what it would have been like to grow up indoctrinated by social media from day one, the way kids are today. It is frightening. 95% of 13-year-olds are active on social media, and you better believe 100% of them are being exposed to extremely mature adult content. So between sexual vulgarity, materialism, and narcissism, where does this road of social media lead? Are we at a point yet of saying that it is a red flag to even have a public Instagram or TikTok account? Are we at a point where we see selfies and hypersexual and materialistic attention-seeking influencer content as indicators of narcissism, and the people who participate in such content as unsuitable for commitment and marriage? And I know what you might be thinking. It's hypocritical of me to even be saying that. Here I am posting nearly every day to social media in one way or another. And while it applies to my content as well, I think there are tiers. There are levels to this shit. Just how narcissism exists on a scale. At the top, you have things like education, where the focus is giving something valuable to the public. And at the bottom, you have selfies and self-focused content, which is based on trying to receive value and validation. Essentially, it's look at this energy versus look at me energy. Sure, the two will overlap. Our egos are always involved, and I don't think there's anyone on the face of the planet who is fully immune to the levels of dopamine and validation that social media can elicit. In fact, most people grossly overestimate themselves. Studies indicate that 95% of people believe that they are self-aware, while only 15% actually fit the criteria. We humans are very easily self-deluded. The average man overestimates his fighting ability by 2,000%.
Are you serious?
You are not that guy, pal. You are not that guy. You just watched John Wick last night, and now your imagination is clouding your self-awareness. That's all. Social media is no different. People are becoming so delusional and so entitled. It is absolutely mind-blowing. You cannot exist in a healthy relationship if your psyche and your ego are being blown out of proportion by social media. I'd love to know what you guys think about what I'm throwing down here. Let me know in the comments, or at least with a thumbs up if you find this conversation and my platform valuable. Help a brother out while I share a bit more of the science rather than continue on with the anecdotes and personal opinions. Research confirms that young adults today are the most narcissistic age group. Not only that, they are becoming increasingly narcissistic. A study published in the Journal of Personality analyzed data from 85 samples of American college students. Participants completed the 40-question Narcissistic Personality Inventory, or NPI, and the researchers found that between 1982 and 2006, college students' NPI scores significantly increased. And that was before the introduction of social media platforms like Instagram and TikTok. Social media encourages young people to focus obsessively on themselves and their public image, even within isolation. They use it to cope with anxiety, depression, jealousy, and inadequacy issues, but ironically, it also magnifies those things. It is a vicious cycle. And while the findings from the Newport Institute concluded a correlation between narcissistic traits and social media usage, it is also noted that digital narcissism is not the same as narcissistic personality disorder. While being self-absorbed is true across both groups, people with NPD lack empathy, and there is a lot less recourse for that. Whereas digital narcissism can be combated through limiting social media use and having a more realistic viewpoint when using it. In a 2018 study, researchers tracked 74 participants aged 18 to 34 over 4 months, once again using the NPI, and they found that participants who posted large quantities of photos and selfies showed a 25% increase in narcissism. So basically, people who use platforms that focus on images rather than words are the most likely to become more narcissistic over time. All the research seems to agree that higher amounts of social media use predicts higher levels of grandiose narcissism. This includes time spent on social media, frequency of posts or tweets, number of friends and followers, and how often participants post pictures of themselves. Honestly, even reading through that section there, I'm having a bit of an I told you so moment. I've always felt a strong ick when I see people posting selfies all the time or lip syncing while making extremely suggestive eye contact with themselves in the camera over and over and over, take after take. I genuinely struggle to understand how anyone can possibly record themselves seriously like that, no matter how good looking you are. That type of cringe behavior takes you from a 10 to a 0 real quick. Real freaking quick.
Real fucking quick, niggas.
Well, maybe, at least for anyone with a few ounces of emotional maturity, that is. So maybe it's time we get off the hedonic treadmill. I'm not saying you can't participate in social media and self-presentation. I'm not saying everyone who has an active Instagram account is a narcissist. Dial it back. Just be careful of your internal motivations when using social media. Be aware of your ego. Don't create a facade of yourself and your lifestyle. And don't spend so much time on social media that it starts to dull the colors from your real life and real relationships. Social media is a tool for communication and connection. And like any other tool in our lives, we should understand the risks and the rewards of its use and how to use it safely, because tools can very easily become weapons in the wrong hands. I hope you found this video valuable. See you next time.